out, and you don't have people competing on the same basis. So it's very hard to have that dynamic exist and still talk about procurement practices that completely ignore this fundamental issue built into it.
It's interesting that you brought in the aspect of public sector units, and what the government feels that to have the private industry, to prevent the private industry holding them at ransom, public sector enterprises must be encouraged. And again, I quote from the policy, verbatim, and it says, the public sector industry should be revived to provide vaccines that have very low profit margins, and to make these units competitive, they should hire global consultants through appropriate mechanisms and be allowed to hire key personnel through market competitive rates. I do wish I was a consultant again. However, now here is the classical difference. You are supposed to manufacture vaccines at very low cost, still remain profitable. And to put this in context, the Department of Biotechnology itself has two undertakings which are owned by it. One is Bharat Immunologicals and Biologicals Corporation, and the other the Indian Vaccines. I happened to go to their website and look at their accounts, and you have the numbers for 31st March 2011. The gross revenues of Bipcol were 40 million rupees, and the loss was 41 million rupees. Right? And when you look at the risk factors, and this is interesting what you said, Mahima, because in the risk factors, and this is a public listed company, it says one of the risk factors and why it's doing badly is because it is not receiving preferential treatment for procurement of vaccines. So this is an interesting point. Say it in your experience, have you seen across the world, what is the role of public sector or government-owned enterprises in the entire vaccine production business?
Well, thank you. And traditionally, public sector institutions have been very important. And I think if we go back 3 or 4 decades ago, they were the largest supplier of vaccines worldwide. But I think the 3 words I would put as most important is quality. And it is absolutely critical that we have a culture of quality assurance and quality control that runs through these institutions. And I want to remind everybody that the industry here in India has gone through a remarkable change. If I look at, for example, pentavalent, which Gavi is very engaged in, it's a complicated vaccine. In 2008, there was just a little bit of a limited supply. By 2012 now, the large majority of our procurement worldwide comes through Indian companies. However, there have been a number of Indian companies that have been delisted. And I think the challenge is going to be, how do we make sure that all companies take quality seriously? Because even if 5 of the companies have incredible world standard quality assurance, quality control, if the last couple of companies don't, they will affect the image of Indian biopharmaceuticals around the world. So going back to your question about public sector, I think one of the questions is it fair that India manufacturers provide pre-qualified vaccines for the rest of the world, but in India, non-pre-qualified vaccines are being used? And again, to me, the standards have to be at a similar level. And I think there's 2 components to this. One, internally in industry, one has to have that culture. And I know many companies are in the process of redoing their quality assurance, quality control to bring it to those levels where this is a core strategy, philosophy of the company. The second part is we need a stringent national regulatory agency. Whether it is one agency now, what it looks like, whether vaccines ought to be separated from small molecules, et cetera, those I think are the debates. But you need a national regulatory agency that is stringent and sets standards that are not the minimum standards, but are standards such that they will be respected throughout the world. And this is important as an industrial policy also, because there are many other countries that are envious of where India is right now, and they of course are going to be now trying to move into the space. And so if there are perceptions of poor quality, they are going to be much more successful in moving into the space where India clearly now is the world leader.
Thanks, Ed. Since you have got into the area of the regulatory standards that we have here in India, some of you might go back to the 70s, we used to always have an export quality product and a domestic quality product. That brings back memories. But Dr. Menate, if the WHO itself has issued notices to some of the manufacturers in India, what's your overview of the regulatory standards that are prevalent in India today?
Well, I think we look at it from two perspectives here in WHO India. On one hand, we live in India and we are experiencing, as every Indian, when you go to a pharmacy, you never know what you get and you never know what quality is going to be. So I think this in itself is already a very alarming situation, that you don't know. And actually there are no places where you can go and have a guarantee that you are going to get appropriate quality product, not to mention that you may get quite another product when you go to the pharmacy. So that's altogether a big issue. However, obviously we are very concerned, and dual standards have never been promoted by WHO. On the contrary, we have always said that there should be fair rules of game that are set equally applicable to private sector and public sector, and this should be exercised on equal terms, and that's how you ensure actually this kind of sustainable quality assurance in the country. Now, obviously, it is actually very embarrassing that the export quality products are going through a different kind of scrutiny and different system of quality assurance, and the domestically available products are of different quality standard. We have this long-lasting collaboration with the government on the regulatory dimensions of both pharmaceuticals and vaccines, and we are constantly addressing that. The issue here is that there is a long way to go, and certain things have been possible to resolve, certain things need to be resolved. There are a lot of organizational challenges that need to be addressed also, and there are no maybe unique answers to those questions, because there are many ways of organizing things as long as you have clarity on the objective that you want to achieve. So how you put these things together very much depends on the overall political outlook of the country. It depends very much on also the cultural practice relationship between various stakeholders, and what are the challenges that you are wanting to overcome by reorganizing or making different structure. That's why we are not seeing like creation of vaccine agency as necessarily a solution to all problems. It will solve some problems, hopefully, but let us look what are those problems, how they can be resolved, whether through this structure or that structure. That's not so important. More important is that there is a proper dialogue between all stakeholders, that we do not focus everything on the control of the quality. These are different times now. We are in a different century, and in fact no drug regulator or vaccine regulator can guarantee the quality of the products that are licensed by having good quality control procedure or issuing the license. As we all know, the quality is indeed a daily issue. It has to be culture, it has to be embedded in practices, in the mentality, in everywhere. And it is, I will come to just a short mention that vaccine quality itself is not ending like pharmaceutical quality, is not ending at the manufacturer side. Yes, many times we have good vaccines produced, but they are not delivered as to the consumer at the end of the same quality because of supply chain issues, because of the storage issues, because of all sorts of other conditions in the field, and lack of adequately competent human resources to deal with these vaccines all the way through before it gets delivered. And so when we are talking about 50% of India's children not being routinely immunized today, it's a huge number. So when we are talking also whether we have enough of vaccines or whether we have enough of capacity, let us look at only half of this we are talking about, and that half is even not necessarily of the quality that we all want to see. So I think it's a long way to go. There is a lot of investment that is required. There is a lot of technical capacity building that is required. There is a lot of international exposure that is required also for those regulators and inspectors and professionals who deal with the quality issues in India. And WHO and other partners, international partners, and other countries are willing to step in and help India to keep its regulatory system across on all the stages.